welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Wednesday, August 14th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Chris Towers. Today on the show, George Kirby got destroyed. Zebby Matthews looks pretty good in his debut. Two pitchers who might be aces, and we'll fire up the worryometer for six hitters who have been struggling here in the second half so far. But let's jump in.
Give me that burger to go! It's a walk-off win!
Jake Berger did it again. We'll talk about him a little bit later on. Chris, over to you. Player of the night.
Yeah, we got to start off with George Kirby. And look, would it make you feel better to know that rather than giving up 6 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings as he did, it was initially 11, and then a scoring change cut that down. He dropped a third of a run in his season ERA just from that scoring change. So, hey, that should make you feel better, right?
I think so.
Yeah, it was pretty bad, and I don't really think there's too much to take away from it. And in fact, if you want something that actually should make you feel better, I found a fun stat. Let me just make sure I have it correct. Yes. All right. Kirby gave up 3 home runs today and a whopping 9 batted balls that were at least 100 miles per hour. Not a hard hit ball is 95 miles per hour. This is 100 miles per hour. He gave up 9 of them. There have only been 9 other starts all season by other pitchers or by pitchers with more 100 plus mile per hour batted balls. One of them actually came against George Kirby on May 19th. He had a 2.64 ERA over his next 10 starts, which is to say George Kirby is quite good. And I don't think this start really signifies anything. I think it was just an especially bad start. And look, maybe George Kirby, because he doesn't have like gigantic swing and miss stuff, and because he pounds the strike zone, maybe he will be more prone to these kind of outcomes than most pitchers of his caliber. I think he's had at least 2, maybe 3, 4 other starts of at least 5 earned runs, including one where he gave up 8 earned runs in 3 2/3 innings on April 3rd. And yet nobody has really questioned whether George Kirby is an ace this season. And I don't think we need to start doing that now. Selfishly, it makes my preseason skepticism of George Kirby look a little better. You know, now that ERA is up to 340, but he's very good. And I don't think there's any real reason to worry about this start.
Yeah, look, it just happens. I know, obviously, some people are starting up their fantasy playoffs, and this is a pretty hard one.
Oh, it's bad.
Yeah, it's really bad. Like, there's no way around it. I had somebody on Twitter tell me that he gave up 6 infield hits, so I guess they were trying to say he was maybe unlucky, but he also gave up 3 home runs and all of that hard contact that you talked about. So there's no way around it. George Kirby got crushed in the start. His ERA jumped from 3.13 to 3.42. In this start alone, he had allowed 3 earned runs or fewer in 13 straight starts entering this one. So he was really good for a long time. Obviously gets destroyed. I think he's going to wind up with minus 11.5 fantasy points on CBS in this start. The Tigers are the team that he faced, and they put up 15 runs total on 21 hits. Just wanted to give some shout outs to some of the players who did that damage. Kerry Carpenter, welcome back. First game back from the IL, 3 for 5 with a double dong, 3 RBI. He missed nearly 3 months with a lumbar spine stress fracture. And in 51 games this season, he's actually been pretty productive.
He's been awesome. Yeah.
293 batting average, 10 homers, 962 OPS. That's like a 30 home run pace, really good batting average.
And I think his last 7 games before the injury, he had 3 home runs. So he was starting to heat up. Really nice to see him get back and show no signs of rust. He was, if I'm remembering correctly, very good on his rehab assignment coming back from the injury as well. The problem with Carpenter, he's like 54% rostered, I think.
Up to 56% now.
56%. The problem is he's played almost I think he has 13 plate appearances or 18 plate appearances against lefties this season. So
Yeah.
they were not letting him play every day. And I would guess coming back from the injury, he's probably not going to play every single day the rest of the way, but he might just be good. You know, he has a 380 expected WOBA for the season before the 2 homers today. So very, very impressive stuff. I think he needs to be rostered in all categories leagues. Any of outfielder league.
16 at bats against left-handed pitching for Kerry Carpenter on the season. So looking head-to-head points, 3 outfielder leagues, probably don't need Kerry Carpenter in those formats, but I would say 5 outfielder leagues, even 3 outfielder daily lineup leagues. If you really pay attention and you're on top of it, just getting him in whenever he plays, I think it's totally fine to roster Kerry Carpenter in that league as well. Let's go over to my player of the night, and we are going to talk about James Wood, who, did I delete his? Oh, here you go. I copied his stats, and I forgot to paste them back in, so I was freaking out. I'm like, where did I put his numbers? But he is heating up in a big way. He had a big game here on Tuesday, 4 for 5 with a double, 3 runs, and an RBI. He had 4 hard hits, 2 of those over 105 exit velocity. Last 16 games now for James Wood, 397 batting average, 2 homers, 4 doubles, 3 triples, 16 runs, 4 steals, and OPS over 1100. And the ground ball rate during the span, 51%. It's still higher than we'd like, but that is much better than when he first got called up. His first 21 games, a 65% ground ball rate, and the next 16, it's been 51%. So
and it's
trending that way for James Wood.
Trending even better since the start of August, which I don't know how many games that is exactly. It might be like 12. But since the start of August, his ground ball rate is down to 45.8%.
Wow.
So that's what you want to see. That it's still not perfect, right? He has 2 batted balls in the air to the pull side all season. So that is where most of the damage comes for power hitters, is to the pull side in the air. And he's not getting that there. It's still pretty scary that he's got like an 818 OPS while not being optimized at all for hitting for power. Like this is all, he's still striking out a ton, 31% for the season, still hitting the ball in less than optimal ways. And yet only 2 players have a higher average exit velocity. Only 3 players have a higher average exit velocity. 2 have a higher hard hit rate.
Yeah.
James Wood. So I don't know, man. Is he going to be a top 36 pick next year?
I was just thinking about this. I think it's eerily reminiscent to Elly De La Cruz.
Yeah, I think he's just going to be a super, super controversial player in drafts this season. If he gets pushed up into the 2nd round range, I'm probably out. But it's really easy to see the case for it. Like you said, just look at Elly De La Cruz, who was probably the most controversial player in draft season last year, and he's blowing away even a late 1st round valuation if you had that on him. So James Wood is that kind of talent, not the same kind of athlete.
Yeah.
But 82nd percentile sprint speed, 6 stolen bases in 37 games. He's run 11 times in 37 games too. So they're giving him the green light. Yeah, the ceiling here is sky high.
He does have to become more efficient on the base paths. It's very early in his career, 6 for 11. That's obviously not going to cut it. But, and let me be clear, when I say it's eerily reminiscent of Elly De La Cruz, I don't think James Wood has the same skill set moving forward, like projecting long term. But in terms of what we're going to have entering next year is a pretty small sample size of a top-notch prospect. And I think people are going to be really, really excited. And as a result, he's probably going to be drafted inside the first 3 rounds.
You know, for all our talk about what a bad year it's been for rookies and how tough it's been,
they're coming around now.
Jackson Merrill, Jackson Holiday, Jackson Churio. We spent a lot of time talking about them last week because they put up huge numbers. And then James Wood, like, we might have 4 second-year hitters inside the top 50 in ADP next year. It's entirely possible.
Yeah, and I heard you and Scott talk about this last week. I think kind of the way that we should approach prospects moving forward, at least for the foreseeable future, because this is kind of the way it's gone the past couple of years, is they get called up at first, they struggle, it takes them some time to adjust, and then they start to figure things out, and slowly but surely, we start to see big numbers from these obviously highly touted and very talented players. So I'm not exactly sure off the top of my head who the top prospects who haven't debuted will be entering next season, but that should probably be our approach, I think, for those players entering 2025. Did want to give a shout out to Juan Soto, who had the first 3-homer game of his career, 3 for 4 with a triple dong, 4 RBI, and the overall numbers at this point, 306 batting average, 33 homers, 100 runs scored, a 1042 OPS. Juan Soto set his career high last year with 35 homers. He's at 33 on August 14th. So I feel pretty good in saying we will have a new career high for Juan Soto again.
He's 5th, I think, in average exit velocity this season. It's just been a bonkers season for Juan Soto as well. And to go back to the James Wood comment for just one, you said, who are the top prospects who haven't debuted yet? We're not going to have a Wyatt Langford next year. Unless like Travis Bazzana or Charlie Condon.
Yeah.
Or maybe one of those Red Sox guys goes nuts in spring training. I'm looking at Scott's top prospects who hadn't debuted by midseason. Dylan Cruz, he's at AAA, but it's been a rocky start. I still have faith in him. Walker Jenkins, probably not even going to get to AA this season. So probably not going to have any non-debuted rookies getting pushed up draft boards unless someone has a huge spring.
What's going to be the weirdest part about it is I think the top prospect not to debut entering next year will be a pitcher, Jackson Jobe.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And he might crash the rotation in spring training.
Yep. All right. Quick reminder to sign up for the FB2 newsletter if you haven't already. I know we're getting later into the season. It might be harder for people to catch the entire podcast. Obviously, we want you guys to stick around as long as you possibly can, but might be easier for you to just consume the FB2 newsletter at this point in the season. So if you're watching on YouTube, scan the QR code that will take you right to the website where you click on the FBT logo, you punch in your email address, and it's easy as that. You'll get a newsletter delivered right to your inbox every weekday for free. Let's take our first break. When we return, some bad news on Jazz Chisholm right after this.
Football action continues. Are you ready for this? Ready to take chances? As the gridiron is taken over by the Great White North. It's time to storm the fortress. It's time to fight on the battlefield. Catch the Canadian Football League on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in the news and notes. And Chris, my heart is broken because Jazz Chisholm has suffered a UCL injury in his left elbow and will most likely need a stay on the IL. The Yankees are still waiting to determine the severity of the injury, which I guess it could span a mild sprain and he's back in a couple of weeks, or he needs some kind of elbow surgery and might miss the start of next season as well. So it's a very wide range of outcomes moving forward here for Jazz.
Yeah, I mean, the good news, if you had to look for some good news, is that it's his left elbow, which is a non-throwing elbow. So if it was a significant injury, you would hope that it's not going to be like, I'm trying to think of a position player who had Tommy John surgery recently in their throwing arm. Bryce Harper, who I guess actually came back very, very quickly. So maybe that's not the best example, but yeah, we just don't know. And it's a bummer because he's been really good since joining the Yankees. I think he's been surprisingly solid at third base. So yeah, Scott and I were just talking about it last week. I think Scott had moved Jazz Chisholm up to like his number 7 or 8 third baseman. I'm still recovering from hosting last week, so I only updated my Roto rankings today, but he was number 7 before this news, so definitely going to have to move him down. Hopefully not too far, though.
Yeah, I was updating my infield rankings here on Tuesday, and I moved Jazz up to 8th at third base in Roto, and I believe 11th at third base in head-to-head points behind Bregman and Machado. I think those guys are a little bit better in that format, but, if he has to go on the IL, it's probably going to knock him down a few spots there as well. I guess if you want to look at a glass half full, someone like Riley Green had elbow surgery late in the season last year, and he was ready for opening day,
Mhm.
and he's had a great year. So
Yeah.
if you're thinking long-term, if you have Jazz in a keeper or dynasty league, that's glass half full, but we still don't even know if he's going to need surgery or not. One name to watch in deeper leagues, assuming Jazz does go on the IL, is Oswald Peraza. Last 20 games at AAA, batting .320 with 7 homers, 17 runs, 19 RBI, 7 steals, and a 1094 OPS. Still only 24 years old and a former top prospect. So just thought I would throw the name out there. The deepest of leagues, AL only. If you play in a dynasty league, maybe you take a shot there on Oswald Peraza. Yoshinobu Yamamoto threw about 40 pitches during a bullpen on Tuesday and is scheduled to face hitters on Friday. Ketel Marte was out of the lineup Tuesday with that bruised ankle. And after the game, Torey Lavulo said Marte has a low-grade ankle sprain and is day-to-day. Sounds like he is not going on the IL. Christian Walker is no longer feeling the effects of his oblique strain and has begun hitting off a tee. I'm interested to see what the D-backs will do once he returns, just because Josh Bell has been red hot. Jock Peterson is hitting. I don't think they want to use Jock Peterson in the outfield, but it's a good problem to have. Obviously, Walker's going to play, but one of Josh Bell or Jock Peterson is going to have to lose playing time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Peterson could play a little left field, and Lourdes Gurriel's been pretty bad since a really hot start to the season, so maybe that's an option if Jock Peterson can play the outfield. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see because Josh Bell has seen his roster rate rise a ton over the last month, and that's I don't think Christian Walker would stop being an everyday player when healthy. So yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to see.
Ranger Suarez is tentatively lined up to rejoin the Phillies rotation during their August 23rd to 25th series in Kansas City. Suarez currently on the IL with lower back soreness. Justin Verlander will make his second rehab start at AA on Thursday. He built up to 52 pitches in his first rehab outing. Riley Green will begin a rehab assignment at AAA on Thursday. He's on the IL with a right hamstring strain. Imaging on Byron Buxton's hip came back negative. Right hip discomfort forced him out of the lineup on Monday. He did not play on Tuesday. Mark Vientos has missed 2 straight due to left ankle soreness. I do think he appeared as a pinch hitter on Tuesday when I was checking out that box score. JD Martinez left Tuesday's game with a left elbow contusion after getting hit by a 100-mile-per-hour fastball.
Yeah, X-rays were negative on that one.
And the Dodgers announced that River Ryan will require Tommy John surgery. And given the timing, that means he will likely miss all of 2025 as well. Are these two pitchers aces? Let's talk about it. Hunter Green keeps on rolling, this time up against the Cardinals. 7 innings, 1 run, 8 strikeouts, had 16 whiffs on 106 pitches. The fastball was awesome in the start. 11 of his 16 whiffs, a 31% whiff rate, a 33% CSW. 7 starts since the beginning of July for Hunter Green, a .98 ERA and a .70 whip. Michael King is the other name here. He was awesome up against the Pirates. 6 shutout innings with 10 strikeouts to 0 walks, 17 whiffs on 93 pitches. And he basically had a really bad March and April. Remember, he made a few appearances in that series in Korea out of relief, and he was not good. He got off to a really, really slow start. 17 starts since the beginning of May. Michael King has a .254 ERA, a 107 whip, 121 strikeouts over 99 and a third innings. Chris, both of these guys might just be aces. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the only question that you have about King at this point is just how he holds up, right? You remember he was moved into the rotation late last season. He has not thrown, I don't think he's thrown more than 100 innings in a season, Michael King, since like 2019, if I'm remembering correctly. Let me make sure.
He threw 104 and 2/3 last year.
104 and 2/3. So he's already thrown more than any season since 2018 was the number. He threw 161 that year. Last year was the most he'd thrown since then. So don't know, he's in uncharted territory here. Don't know how he's going to respond, but I mean, you look at all the ERA estimators, he's got the strikeout rate now up over 28%, walk rate down below 9%. Really good quality of contact metrics, one of the lowest average exit velocities in baseball. I believe he has the second lowest hard hit rate in baseball as well. That changeup is just dynamite. It's one of the best pitchers in baseball, arguably. So, yeah, I think it's reasonable to be a little skeptical and a little concerned about how, maybe September is going to go for King. But in terms of pure quality of pitching, I don't really have any concerns about him at this point. I've taken the L on him twice. I was out on him in the preseason. I was double out on him after April. And he's made that look pretty stupid. So way to go. Hell of a season. And as for Hunter Green, here's the comp I can't get out of my head. And this is more 2025 focused. But I want to make this comp. And I've made it a few times. But in 2021, Dylan Cease had a 383 expected WOBA on contact. He was an elite strikeout pitcher, walked a bunch of guys, and it came out to a 391 ERA. 2022, remember, he was one of the best pitchers in baseball. 220 ERA, 30% strikeout rate. His walk rate actually got worse in 2022 than it was in 2021, but his breakout was fueled by 313 expected WOBA on contact, 70 points lower than 2021. 2023, walk rate right where it was the year before. Strikeout rate went down a little bit, but the biggest problem was he went from bad on quality of contact to elite on quality of contact, right back to bad in 2023. And even this season, Dylan Cease has been phenomenal. I think it's, in terms of talent, the best we've ever seen of him. His quality of contact is still pretty mediocre, and he's just gotten back to being an elite strikeout pitcher and has the best control of his career. So he's had to kind of remake himself to get back to an elite level. Hunter Green, 2023, pretty bad quality of contact metrics, 384. 2024, he's down to 307. That is one of the 3 lowest marks in expected WOBA on contact for any starting pitcher in the last 5 seasons. I don't know. Can he keep it up? He gets a lot of infield fly balls. He got 5 pop-ups today. That's one way to guarantee outs, besides striking people out. That's one way to guarantee your quality of contact is going to look really good. I wish I had a better feel for how he has gotten so much better in terms of the quality of contact he's allowed, because it's mostly just the fastball has gone from a real problem to a real plus. And maybe it's the threat of the splitter is making the fastball play up, although he's had really good starts where he's barely thrown the splitter. So I don't know about that. You're just riding this hot streak out the rest of the season. And Hunter Green might ride this hot streak to an NL Cy Young. He's absolutely in that conversation. Whether he can keep it up, that's a tougher question. I feel like I'm going to be out on Hunter Green in 2025 after I was in on him in 2024.
Are you comfortable saying Hunter Green will perform like an ace the rest of this season while still being cautious for 2025?
Yeah, so I updated my Roto rankings today, and I moved Hunter Green. I thought I moved him into the top 15. So yeah, I feel like Hunter Green, absolutely a must-start, difference-making type pitcher. I think it's fair to question whether he'll be able to keep that up next year, but the way he's going right now, yeah, I think it's worth betting on him the rest of the way.
Yeah, and I'm just eyeballing it right now. Going to update the pitcher rankings on Wednesday. Blake Snell I have way too low. He's going to jump inside the top 10, but Hunter Green, I think he'll be inside the top 15. I think he deserves to be ahead of guys like Imanaga and Sonny Gray, who have been, up and down recently. Mm-hmm. Michael King probably should be a top 20 pitcher as well.
Yeah, so, the one I struggled with was Hunter Green versus Framber Valdez, who is having his own.
Looks like he's back. Yeah.
Yeah, really, arguably better than we've ever seen him with the curveball usage leading to a bunch of strikeouts. So that's one, but I think you're splitting hairs one way or the other.
Yeah.
I haven't moved King into my top 30. I probably need to.
Yeah. I had him at SP 27 even before I went on vacation. So yeah, I think Michael King climbing inside the top 20 starting pitchers rest of season. Let's fire up the worryometer here on a Wednesday, 1 to 10. 1, we are not worried at all. 10, we are very worried about this player. And I've got 6 hitters here who have been struggling for some time. And first up is Will Smith, who actually had a good game here on Tuesday, 3 for 4 with his 16th home run. This was his first home run since July 6th. In 22 games between homers, he hit 145 with a 30% strikeout rate and a 429 OPS. This could just be the ebbs and flows of a season. There could be more to it. Chris, what do you think? Will Smith on the worryometer.
His playing time hasn't really, I guess he's played a little more than last season. He's up to 96 games. He only played 126 last season. So, that would be my first thought when you're talking about a 29-year-old catcher who in the past has played almost every game and has been a really high volume player, but maybe he just can't hold up to that kind of usage anymore. He's on pace for, I don't know, probably 130 games. And that's a really high number for a catcher. So that would be my first thought. As far as the worryometer, I mean, I feel like I can't go any higher than like a 1 because I can't tell, like, I don't know, maybe if you picked up, oh man, I'm blanking on the catch. Austin Wells. Like if you picked up Austin Wells, could you sit Will Smith while he's cold? Yeah. Maybe, but I don't really think you want to, right? Like that would be really hard to do.
Especially with Betts back in the Dodgers lineup.
Yeah, so I think you probably just roll with him, and it hasn't been great. It's been tough, but there are so few catchers who aren't bad that I don't really worry too much about it.
And the bar is just so low for a catcher, right? I mean, if he hits 250 with 20 to 25 home runs and a near 800 OPS, that's still probably a borderline top 5 catcher. So, I think we got a little bit spoiled early on with Will Smith earlier in the season. Let's talk about another catcher, Francisco Alvarez, 0 for 4 with a strikeout here on Tuesday. He has just 1 home run in his past 31 games, and during that stretch, a 208 batting average, 30% strikeout rate, 50% ground ball rate, a sub 600 OPS. He did deal with some shoulder soreness in late July, so perhaps that has been lingering a little bit here. It's his career is still a small sample overall, Chris, but what we've seen is he gets really hot and he gets really cold. Francisco Alvarez, where is he on the worryometer?
This is one that I think not only is it reasonable to be worried about him, it's reasonable to just move on.
In 1 catcher leagues.
In 1 catcher leagues. In 2 catcher leagues, probably not. But I think I have a 2 catcher league where I did bench him this week.
It's not crazy.
I started Adrian Del Castillo and Travis d'Arnaud over him because d'Arnaud's been really hot. Del Castillo's looked really good in his early playing time. That's not to say I think either of those guys should be ranked ahead of Francisco Alvarez, because I don't, but like the gap between him and Tyler Stevenson and Austin Wells, I think has probably just disappeared. And if you wanted to rank those guys ahead of him and even drop him for either of those guys, I think it'd be reasonable. And he's not the only catcher in that range who's struggled. Logan O'Hoppe has cooled down a lot as well. So like I think those two have come back to the pack, and there's like a top 8 probably, because Wilson Contreras has been awesome since coming back from his injury.
I think that's all fair. And when updating the rankings, I actually moved Tyler Stevenson and Shea Langoliers ahead of Francisco Alvarez. Langoliers went 4 for 4 with 2 doubles and his 22nd home run here on Tuesday. 22 homers.
22 homer. I did not realize it was,
tied for second most among catchers. So Langoliers 64% rostered in 1 catcher leagues. Totally fine making that swap. Alvarez for Langoliers. Let's talk about Bryce Terang, 0 for 4 with a strikeout. Last 31 games, he is batting 144 with 2 extra base hits, 5 steals, a 54% ground ball rate. He's still 95% rostered. I get holding him in a categories league because, if he gets hot again, he just runs so often. In a points league, I mean, what is Bryce Terang giving you right now? Where is he on the worryometer?
I think it's fully context dependent. I think in a roto league, it's probably still reasonable to view him as like a top 150 player overall, and that's where I have him in my overall rankings. But in a points league, yeah, I think Bryce Terang is pretty easy to drop, actually. So yeah, I'm cool with that.
The problem is second base is just a wasteland.
It's not great.
You get past Betts and Altuve and Semien and Ketel Marte when he's healthy.
And Semien's, I still have a lot of confidence in him, but he's not a top 25 player anymore, based on what he's done this season. I still think he'll be very good, but yeah, there's a big drop off between those guys to the point where Jackson Holiday might be the number 5 second baseman now.
It's not crazy. I moved Holiday up to 12, but I have Bogarts at 5. I have Mike Garcia at 6. I mean,
he's been.
It doesn't.
I guess he's turning it around, but he's also batting out and out the bottom of the lineup. It's
if you wanted to use someone like, we have had some players emerge recently. Jackson Holiday, Brandon Lau has been great. Xavier Edwards, Tyler Fitzgerald. If you wanted to use one of those players over a Bryce Terang, even drop Bryce Terang for one of them, in a shallower league, I think it's totally fine. What about the same for Jake Cronenworth, who is struggling so far in the second half? 208 batting average with 1 homer and a 590 OPS. What do you think here on Cronenworth? He
was one of those guys early on in the season. Remember, he got off to a great start. I kind of moved him up into like the 120 range in my overall rankings, and that meant he was like a top 12 second baseman and like 15th at first base. And I think is he eligible at another position? Either way.
Yeah, first base. Yep.
And then I just didn't really think about it. And then today, when I was updating my rankings, I was like, I haven't really thought about Jake Cronenworth in a while. And then I went and looked, and it's been pretty rough. So I'm going to say a 6 in terms of worryometer. I did move him down to he's my 18th second baseman, but a lot of the guys above him are pretty bad too. So I don't really have a lot of confidence in Christopher Morel or Gleyber Torres anyway. So if that's too low, that's fine. But Jake Cronenworth, not someone I'm viewing as a must-start player at this point.
Let's go into the outfield here, and 2 higher-end names who have struggled recently. Brandon Nimmo, 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. He's really cooled off in the second half. 145 batting average with 0 homers, a 461 OPS, nearly a 30% strikeout rate. Chris, where is Brandon Nimmo on the worryometer?
I would say pretty low, like a 2 or a 3. I didn't really buy into him as, the elite hitter that he looked like for a stretch there in around July, but he's rock solid. And I think he'll turn it around. He's not a 227 hitter like his season. I think, something like 260, 265 is probably more reasonable. So not too worried.
What about Luis Robert? 1 for 4 with an RBI and 2 strikeouts. Struggling big time in the second half. 129 batting average, 1 home run. He does have 6 steals, but a 371 OPS. 42 strikeouts in 88 plate appearances in the second half. That is a 48% strikeout rate. I just wonder, he might just be disinterested, right? It's like, you're on the White Sox, one of the worst teams in history. This is like, what are you doing, right? So, I don't know. Where's Luis Robert on the worryometer?
I've been hesitant to move him down as much as I'm sure the people listening want me to. I still have him ranked, I believe, as a top 25 outfielder. That's a lot of faith, though. That's not like I feel super confident in this guy. It's just, I know he's talented. I know he's been an elite. I mean, he played like a first rounder last year. So I don't want to give up on that guy, but it's been really bad for a really long time. And yeah, it might just be that he's on a horrible team. And not that he's dogging it, but just that stuff can get to you. Eloy Jimenez talked about that after getting traded, and that's hard to get out of your head sometimes. And so it wouldn't be a surprise if He continued to play very poorly, not this poorly, not a 50% strikeout rate like he's had since the All-Star break. But, gets traded this offseason. Let's cross our fingers. Let's pray, whatever you do, light some candles. And if he has a huge season in 2025, I would not be surprised by that at all. But yeah, it's pretty bad right now. I think you got to be like a 7 or 8.
Do you think he's droppable in 3 outfielder leagues?
3 outfielder leagues, sure. Yeah, because that's his worst format anyway. And even if he gets hot, counting stats are going to be hard to come by in that lineup. So I think that's reasonable. I think I would have trouble doing it, but I get it.
Again, that is Luis Robert. Let's take our final break. And when we return, we'll move into some waiver wire options right after this. Welcome back in. Let's talk about some waiver wire pitchers. 2 names that could be out there in shallower leagues. Jake Irvin bounced back with a quality start at the Orioles. 6 innings, 2 runs with 3 strikeouts. He still gave up 10 hard hits in this one. And the previous 6 starts entering this, they were a mess for Jake Irvin. 6.82 ERA, 152 whip. And the other name is Shane Baz, who turned in a quality start up against the Astros. 7 innings, 3 runs, 6 strikeouts, gave up 2 homers in this one. Had 12 whiffs. 7 of those came on the fastball. He's still searching for the breaking pitches. He's just not getting whiffs on those like he has in years past. Again, that's Shane Baz. It's hard for me to muster much enthusiasm for either one of these guys right now. Chris, what do you think about Shane Baz and Jake Irvin?
It's a lot easier for me to muster enthusiasm about Baz than Irvin. If you are the mad person who started Jake Irvin against the Orioles today after giving up a 6.82 ERA in his previous 6 starts, congratulations, Evel Knievel, but you should probably not do it again because he was really lucky, I think, to get away from this one with the results that he did. Only 3 strikeouts in 6 innings, 10 hard hit balls, like you said. I don't want to say it's over, but the skill set always felt pretty fringy, even when the results were good. And so I think this is a Tyler Anderson's not the best example because he's actually gotten better as the season's gone on in a lot of ways. But a lot of what we said about him where, yeah, it's fine to use him when things are going well, but it should be pretty easy to let go when things aren't. That's how I feel about Jake Irvin.
Let's talk about Zebby Matthews, who made his debut for the Twins, and he was facing the Royals. 5 innings, 2 runs, had 5 strikeouts to 0 walks, only 6 whiffs on 77 pitches. Gave up a good amount of hard contact in this one. Threw 5 pitches, but mostly a 3-pitch mix, 49% fastball usage, 21% slider, 19% cutter. He threw 64% of his pitches for strikes, was having a breakout season in the minors. We've talked a lot about Matthews recently. 24% rostered. Would you be looking to add him after seeing the debut here?
I think it's like he's only 24% rostered. So in some deeper leagues, I think where he's available, it's fine to add him. This is one of the ones where I wish Scott was on because I know he likes Zebby Matthews more and might be able to give the more optimistic take. But elite control, iffy stuff is not a profile that I tend to bet on. And maybe that's not giving Zebby Matthews enough credit. Strikeout rates were very good in the minors, and the command is legitimately excellent. I mean, the one thing I think is interesting is he didn't have any walks allowed in this one, despite I think he only threw like 43% of his pitches in the strike zone, which tells me that he is really good at painting, like finding the corners of the strike zones, living in the shadow zone, finding ways to get strikes without living in the strike zone. And that's what you have to do when you get hit hard. And so maybe he can do that. But one of the reasons why I'm having trouble getting too optimistic is also just the Twins. They've been very careful with a lot of their young pitchers, Simeon Wood Richardson, Louis Varland when he's been in there, a couple other guys. They just don't go more than 5 innings very often. This is a team that's really not letting their young guys see the third time through the order. So I just don't know how much upside there is for Zebby Matthews, even though I think he'll be, he could be pretty good.
I think Spencer Arrighetti is the clear most added and top priority on the waiver wire right now. And then you get into a group that has Jose Soriano and maybe someone like Tyler Mahle, who's done some interesting things so far. Where would you put Matthews in that group of 3, Chris? Soriano, Mahle, Matthews.
I think I'd go third. Although Mahle, I do wonder if, we've seen a lot of guys coming back from elbow injuries, not finding their sliders right away. And that's what we've seen from Mahle. And it might just be, he doesn't have, I think he has 1 swing and miss on his slider in 2 starts. So it might be tough for him to figure it out on the fly like this. I will say I might prefer Matthew Boyd to Zebby Matthews. I don't know. I don't hold me to that, but I'm kind of interested in Matthew Boyd, which is like the most famous last words utterance of a fantasy analyst of all time.
Yep. And that's exactly where we're going next. 2 names in deeper leagues. Welcome back to Matthew Boyd, who's now pitching for the Guardians, and he had a solid start up against the Cubs. 5 1/3 innings, 1 run, 6 strikeouts, had 12 whiffs on 80 pitches here. And he made 5 starts in the minors. He looked great in those 5 starts, a .83 ERA and a .65 whip. The other name here is Valente Bellozo of the Marlins. He pitched a gem at the Phillies, through 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts and 3 strong starts in a row, a 102 ERA, a .91 whip. Minor league numbers look pretty pedestrian to me. But Chris, give me your thoughts here on Matthew Boyd and Bellozo.
Feel free to throw this in my face if he keeps going like this, but I have no interest in Valente Bellozo. Great start, really nice run for a team that badly needs something to be optimistic about on the pitching side this year, but I really don't see any reason to think he's even a league average pitcher moving forward. So I would leave him for all but NL only leagues. Boyd is interesting. Like you mentioned, the minor league rehab starts were excellent. The Guardians are a team with a well-deserved organizational reputation for maximizing pitching. And I thought he looked pretty good, 3+ whiffs on the fastball, slider, and changeup in this one. You're going to get strikeouts at least. It might come with a 5 ERA, but I think there's a little more upside there with Boyd than with certainly Bellozo, but even Zebby Matthews.
And I do want to rectify the pronunciation there. I figured it might have been Bellozo, which is...
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Which is how you pronounce the name there for the pitcher on the Marlins. Yeah, we'll see where it goes from here with Matthew Boyd. He's always had strikeout appeal, but home run problems have always caught up to Matthew Boyd. Widely available.
He gave up like 43 homers one year. Am I right?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't doubt it. But yeah, deeper leagues. Let's
only
we'll see.
9 in 2019.
Do we need to hold on to any of these pitchers? Eric Fetty has struggled in his last 4 starts. 3 of those came with the Cardinals so far. He was at the Reds, 6 innings, 4 runs, only 2 strikeouts. And last 4 starts, it's a .585 ERA, a 140 whip. The overall numbers still look fine. He's, I think, over 80% rostered. Chris, is Eric Fetty someone you need to hold on to?
No, like we mentioned, I can't remember who it was. Jake Irvin.
Yeah.
This is exactly the type of pitcher who, when things are going well, it's perfectly fine to roster them. But the underlying skill set is not so strong that I think you're going to really regret dropping him. Now, don't just drop him for anyone. If there's someone like none of the guys, like if Spencer Arrighetti's out there, I would drop Eric Fetty for him.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I don't really know about Matthew Boyd or Zebby Matthews or any of the other guys we talked about. Like I that might just depend on whose next matchup is best.
Yep. What about Cutter Crawford, who earned the win, but he's been bad for about a month now, up against the Rangers, 5 1/3 innings, 4 runs allowed, 4 strikeouts, only threw 67 pitches in this start. He has not completed 6 innings since July 13th. And last 5 starts for Crawford, a 9.75 ERA, a 1.46 whip, and he's still 87% rostered. Chris, do you need to hold on to Cutter Crawford?
No, I think this is another one that it's perfectly fine. I've got a decision to make in one of my leagues, and I'm hoping we get some more information the rest of the week before Sunday's waiver wire run, because I'm going to have to drop one of Ben Rice, Jordan Walker, or Cutter Crawford, or maybe David Bednar in this league. And I don't really want to drop any of them. I think it's a keeper league as well, so I don't want to like lose keeper value on some of them, but like Crawford's definitely in that conversation, and for good reason.
Yeah. Our apologies if you started Paul Blackburn. I started him in a few spots. This was
I'm not. No, don't put like, it's your team. You hit submit. Don't put that on us.
Well, we did recommend him, but he did not get his revenge up against the Oakland A's. 4 innings, 7 runs, 6 of those earned. One of the most added pitchers this week because of the matchups. Up to 73% rostered. Is it fine to drop Paul Blackburn?
Yeah, I mean, a big part of why we were adding him this week was, one, he had 2 solid starts since joining the Mets, which is a very small sample size. And 2, he had 2 starts this week. So there's a decent chance you were dropping him, even if they were good starts. So yeah, I think that's fine.
And the last name on this list is Gavin Stone, who picked up his first win since that complete game shutout against the White Sox way back on June 26th. And you know what grinds my gears, Kiss? I don't want to go on too much of a rant here, but for all the people who tune into the podcast early in the season, they follow their fantasy baseball team for like 2 or 3 months. Then football starts up. They tune out. They never get to see when things catch up, right? And everyone's trying to pressure us into, you got to move Gavin Stone up your rankings. You got to move Ranger Suarez up your rankings. And then eventually things even out. And those people are not around when things start to even out.
So like Seth Lugo is another example. Things are kind of falling apart for him. And we do this every year. There's always a handful of pitchers who are way outperforming their career norms, but also their underlying stats. And we always try to come up with explanations for why and say, but usually it doesn't work out, but this time it might. And generally speaking, if a player is outperforming their peripherals, you should bet on them regressing. And we're seeing a lot of that lately. That's all I will say.
Previous 6 starts for Gavin Stone before picking up this win: a 6.91 ERA, a 1.90 whip, 6.3 K per 9, 6.36 FIP. He hasn't, like, the overall numbers are still fine, 3.63 ERA and a 1.28 whip, but for the past month and a half, he really hasn't been that usable at all. So just thought I'd throw that out there. He's 84% rostered. Do you need to hold on to Gavin Stone?
I think I would hold on to him ahead of Cutter Crawford or Eric Fetty or Paul Blackburn, but that doesn't, like, you probably don't have all 4 of those pitchers on your staff. So he might be your most droppable. And I think given the mediocre strikeout rate, pretty bad whip. I mean, 128 whip is not great. I think Gavin Stone's a fairly easy drop if you need a spot.
Let's talk some waiver wire hitters. And who would you rather have? I asked Scott this question yesterday. Jake Burger or Junior Caminero? Burger did it again. 1 for 4 with a walk and his 23rd home run. He had 2 hard hits in this game, both over 107 exit velocity. Updated numbers since the start of July for Burger. It's 311 batting average with 16 home runs. He is 79% rostered. And Junior Caminero did make his return to the Rays. I believe he was batting 6th in the lineup. 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. His only ball in play, 116.3 miles per hour off the bat, which is just insane. Chris, who would you prefer, Jake Burger or Junior Caminero?
So part of me is like, well, Junior Caminero could be anything. He could even be Jake Burger. Junior Caminero is much more talented than Jake Burger, right? Like the raw power is comparable, and the fully realized version of Junior Caminero, there's no question, he should be a much more consistent contact hitter than Jake Berger. So Berger's 79% roster, Junior Caminero 72%. So I guess there are some leagues where you could, in theory, drop Berger to add Caminero. What I will say is this: you have a worse hitter than Jake Berger right now. You have someone who is helping you less than Jake Berger if you want to pick up Junior Caminero. So I would rather have Berger. Yeah.
Yeah, the same.
I hope my rankings reflect that.
I moved Berger up to my 19th ranked third baseman, and Caminero up to 21st at third base. So
similar to me. Yeah, I'm a little lower on both, but probably don't need to be honest.
One name in between is Nolan Arenado, which I don't really know what to do with.
He's kind of turning it around lately. He homered today. His OPS is up to 700. I think 717 now.
Ugh.
But yeah, no, to be fair, he has an 855 OPS in August. The problem is it's only one home run. So yeah, I'd rather have both than Arenado, I think, even though my rankings don't reflect that. Maybe I need to change my rankings.
All right. Some names that could be options in 12-team Roto League. So going a little bit deeper into the player pool, Jake McCarthy is on fire. 3 for 5 with 2 RBI. He was batting second against a lefty here on Tuesday. And in the second half, he's batting .391 with 3 homers, 17 RBI, 4 steals, and a 1084 OPS. Max Kepler picking things up in the second half as well. He went 3 for 5 with his 8th home run, added 4 RBI. Gavin Lux has quietly been pretty good for some time now. Last 22 games for Lux, 362, 4 homers, 17 RBI, 1 steal, an OPS over 1,000. Chris, how would you rank those names in terms of just priority? I know they don't play the same position, but McCarthy, Kepler, and Gavin Lux.
I think in a Roto League, I would go with McCarthy at the top. Then probably Kepler ahead of Lux, just because I think he's a better hitter. But like Lux is one of these guys that we've talked about a little bit who have seen their bat speed increase in the second half. And that has coincided with him hitting a lot better. Who would have known? Trying to hit the ball hard works for some players, I guess. But I just think like between platoon questions and not really believing in the overall skill set, I'd go Kepler and McCarthy ahead of Lux.
Would you take McCarthy over Kerry Carpenter, who we spoke about earlier?
No, I would rather have Carpenter. Yeah.
All right. 3 names in deeper leagues. Andres Chaparro made his Nationals debut, 3 for 4 with 3 doubles, 2 runs, and an RBI. He started at first base. He hit 6th in the lineup. 25 years old, was having a great season in the minors. He's only 3% rostered. Jonah Bride has been hitting for the Marlins, 1 for 2 with 3 walks and an RBI. He has started 16 games in a row, mostly batting cleanup. And since being recalled on July 25th, 281 batting average, 4 homers, 11 RBI, and OPS over 900 for Jonah Bride. And Will Wagner, son of Billy Wagner, 2 for 4 with 2 RBI. He had 2 hard hits in this game. One of them, 109.1 exit velocity, which I thought was kind of interesting. Chris, deep league stuff here, 15-team Roto. Was going to, AL, NL only. Any interest? Chaparro, Bride, and Will Wagner.
So one, I want to shout out at DD Keeling 3 on Twitter, who sent me a team name Tuesday that I was hoping both you and Scott would be on, because I can't imagine either one of you get this reference, but we'll see. Chaparrone? No?
No.
Hottog. No, you don't know that one? One of the breakout stars of music summer, Chapel Roan. I thought that was a fun team name. Yeah, I guess a fantasy baseball podcast is not the target audience for Chapel Roan, but she's great. He is by far the most interesting of these 3, and that's not to say that I don't have any interest in the other 2, because I think they're mildly interesting. Jonah Bride actually has decent minor league numbers. He's just very old, so we overlook it. But Chaparro had a really good season in the minors. It was his second turn through AAA. He's a 25-year-old, so I get why people are writing it off, but it's just worth pointing out that the Nationals have had a lot of success with this type of player in the past few seasons. And this is one of the benefits of being a bad team is if you're creative and smart, you cycle through a bunch of interesting quad A players and hope that you get a Lane Thomas or a Jacob Young or a Juan Yepez or a couple years ago, Joey Meneses. Like, these are unlikely to be long-term contributors, but they've shown the ability to hit at the highest level like Chaparro has. And I think he's a pretty interesting deep league target.
All right, let's get into the leftovers and take a look at some pitchers. First up, Tarek Skubal was great once again up against the Mariners. 6 innings, 1 run, 9 strikeouts there. Kevin Gausman has pitched better recently, this time at the Angels. 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts. Last 7 starts for Gausman, a 3.17 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. Yusei Kikuchi has pitched well since joining the Astros. He was at Tampa Bay, 5 2/3 innings with 1 run, 5 strikeouts, and 3 starts with Houston. It's a 2.70 ERA, 0.96 WHIP, 24 strikeouts over 16 2/3 innings. Chris, anything to add on Kikuchi, Gausman, and Skubal?
Skubal's the best pitcher in baseball.
Yep.
And he's going to win the American League Cy Young. Am I forgetting anyone? That shouldn't be a hot take, right? Kevin Gausman is just a guy. I'm not dropping him just on the off chance that he picks up a 1.5 miles per hour on his fastball and rediscovers his previous form, but he hasn't looked right all season. The splitter is not the difference-making pitch it's been in the past, and I just think he's a decent pitcher to have around, but not a must-start pitcher. And Kikuchi, sort of the same. The change that he's made since getting the Astros has been to fade the curveball, prioritize both the slider and changeup at different points. Today it was the slider through it 32% of the time. I think he's solid. I think he's got big upside. There will be some ugly stretches because that's Yusei Kikuchi, but I think on the whole, you'll be happy to have him around.
2 pitchers who bounced back. Nestor Cortez was awesome up against the White Sox. He threw 7 shutout innings with 9 strikeouts, and he did change the pitch mix a little bit in this one. He threw more sweepers and changeups. His changeup has actually low-key been really good this year, so I wonder if that can maybe help Nestor Cortez get back on track. And Charlie Morton bounced back up against the Giants. 6 innings, 2 runs with 8 strikeouts, had 14 whiffs on 98 pitches. When his curveball is working, I think he's still capable of these starts. They're just fewer and farther between now at his advanced age, and there's a lot more inconsistency at this point. Was this enough from either pitcher to consider not dropping them?
Charlie Morton, is he still like 85% rostered? Because he has struck me as probably the most over-rostered pitcher, 87% rostered. Jeez. He might be a 2-star pitcher this week, but there's just been no reason for him to be that highly rostered at any point this season. And like the argument for him coming into the season was you're going to get a lot of strikeouts and a lot of wins. Well, you're not going to get a lot of wins because the Braves are just a decent team and not a great one. And strikeouts have been inconsistent. So I don't really think Charlie Morton needs, I think if he was 50% rostered, that might be too much. So I'm fine dropping him even with a good start. Nestor Cortez, I kind of lean towards to paraphrase our friend Nick Pollock, blame it on the White Sox. They're a disaster. And outside of Monday, pretty much any pitcher can do well against them. Yeah,
I think that's fair. Last name on this list is Seth Lugo, who got rocked at the Twins. 4 innings, 8 runs, 7 earned, and he's starting to show some cracks. Last 6 starts here for Lugo. It's a 5.73 ERA, a 1.25 WHIP. Strikeout rate is way down during that stretch as well. It kind of feels like this is just the regression coming here, Chris. Even with all these bad starts, it's a 3.04 ERA on the season for Seth Lugo.
Yeah, I think that ERA is going to end up over 3.5 before the end. I think he's fine, but I've thought he was fine all season. And yeah, I think a 3.5 to 4 ERA, not a lot of strikeouts. I think he's a decent pitcher, but not a difference maker for fantasy.
Some hitting leftovers. Nico Horner has been running wild lately. 2 for 4 with 2 steals in his last 15 games. He's batting .302 with 8 steals. Alex Bregman has homered in 4 straight. Vlad Jr. hit another homer, his 24th home run. He is now the number 1 first baseman in head-to-head points and roto. Kind of wonder if we should be ranking him that way at this point. He's been really good for a long time now.
Well,
did you do it?
That is where I rank him. I think the more interesting question is, where does Vladimir Guerrero Jr. rank at third base, where he is eligible in fantasy? There have been some weird eligibility things that happened. Christopher Morel is second base eligible now. Yeah, Jazz Chisholm third base eligible. I in Roto, I still have Vlad fourth at third base because Jose Ramirez, Gunnar Henderson, Ellie De La Cruz, those guys are pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have, if Vladimir Guerrero keeps this up, we're going to have a conversation about whether he should be a first rounder next season. And I may be leaning towards ranking it that way right now.
I still have him 5th, but Vlad versus Devers is really close.
That's an interesting one. Yeah.
They're both awesome. And, Devers, the batting average isn't as high, but he gives you more power. So it's, a give and take of what kind of skill set you want between Vlad and Rafael Devers. Last name on this list, Zach Neto, 3 for 4 with his 22nd steal. Chris, you tell me if I'm crazy. I moved Neto up to my 12th ranked shortstop in Roto, 13th in head-to-head points.
Let me see how high I moved Zach Neto. Not quite that high. He is 16th, but it wouldn't take much to get him to 12. So you have him ahead of Jackson Holiday?
I have him, yes, ahead.
I think that's reasonable. I didn't do that, but maybe I should. Yeah, I can definitely see that. I can see the case for it for sure. We've talked about Zach Neto a ton over the last week, but he is now a top 40 overall player in Roto leagues. He's top 6 in points since May 1st. He's top 10 overall. He's been at shortstop. He's been just phenomenal. And yeah, it might not be too much.
Some bullpen updates for the Reds. Alexis Diaz walked 1, but picked up his 24th save. For the Guardians, Emmanuel Clase picked up his 37th save. I read somewhere he has 4 saves.
4 saves in 4 days, yeah.
4 days. That's
the first. It was the first time since someone in some year, but that's all I have to offer.
Yeah, Class A now tied for the league lead with Ryan Helsley, 37 saves on the season. For the Astros, Josh Hader struck out 1 for his 26th save. For the Red Sox, Kenley Jansen recorded the final 4 outs for his 22nd. For the Yankees, Clay Holmes was unavailable. Tommy Canley entered with 2 outs in the 8th inning, runners on 1st and 3rd, a 3-run lead. He got Andrew Benintendi to ground out. Tommy Canley came back out for the 9th inning. He gave up a walk and a double. He was relieved by Jake Cousins, who got the final 3 outs for his first save. And I think Cousins is just a name to watch because he does have good numbers, really big strikeout rate.
Mm-hmm.
His career numbers, a 2.85 ERA, 12.4 K per 9. The walks are bad.
Look like their best reliever lately.
Yeah, so just a name to watch there. Jake Cousins with the Yankees.
By the way, Emmanuel Clase, if he overtakes Helsley, he will lead the league in saves 3 straight seasons.
Wow.
That's pretty bonkers.
I don't know the answer to this trivia question, but who is the last reliever to do that?
I'm sure I could find it if I really wanted to.
Maybe K-Rod, Gagne, I don't know.
Yeah, those would be good picks.
For the Rockies, Victor Vodnik got the 9th inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up 2 runs on 2 walks and 2 hits, took his 3rd blown save and 3rd loss. For the Padres, Robert Suarez got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He gave up a hit, but picked up his 27th save. And for the Braves, Raisel Iglesias pitched a clean 10th inning for his 25th save of the season. To stream or not to stream on Wednesday. And Chris, shield your eyes because this list is pretty gross. It's not many great options, but Jordan Montgomery gets the Rockies in Arizona. Martin Perez, revenge game against the Pirates. Dean Kramer against the Nationals. Jamison Tyone at the Guardians. Tyler Phillips gets the Marlins. David Peterson gets the A's. Grant Holmes at the Giants. Anybody stand out?
Sorry, I was trying to figure out who the last pitcher
to
lead the league in 3 saves 3 years in a row was. Craig Kimbrell led the NL 4 years in a row, but did not lead the majors. So I'm back to like the 60s and I haven't found one. So yeah, that's pretty fun. Gosh, okay. I could see good performances from anyone against the White Sox. So we'll throw Will Warren on that list. He is anyone. Alex Cobb against the Cubs. I don't feel super confident in it. DJ Hertz at Baltimore. I don't feel super confident in it. Martin Perez revenge game. I don't hate. Jordan Montgomery versus Colorado. I don't hate this group. I don't necessarily love it, but I could see some good starts tomorrow.
Yeah, if I had to choose some actual names, it's risky. You shouldn't do it, but I think I would go with Montgomery or Martin Perez on Wednesday. Then on Thursday, we have a smaller slate, but Jose Quintana gets the Oakland A's. Tobias Myers has pitched well, but he gets the Dodgers. Mitchell Parker at the Phillies. The Phillies lineup has just stopped.
Yeah, it's been a problem.
Yep. And then your boy Cody Bradford gets the Twins.
Yeah, I think I like Wednesday more than Thursday, which I guess isn't surprising given there are only 7 games on Thursday, but we didn't love Wednesday, so that tells you something.
Yeah, if I had to choose 2 names on Thursday, I'll go with Quintana and Cody Bradford. We are going to wrap there. For Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify, and we will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.
I don't think anyone's ever had the major league lead 3 years in a row.